Welcome in to the New Orleans Saints podcast, hosted by Erin Summers and John DeShazier. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers who cover the team on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your hosts, Erin Summers and John DeShazier.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. The Saints are continuing their coaching searches, and I promise you we will have all the details once hirings are made. For now, the next big event for the Saints is the Senior Bowl. That is happening next week in Mobile, Alabama. The event draws the top NFL prospects from across the country to compete in an all-star type bowl game on Saturday, February 3rd. Throughout the week, the two teams will go through practices and have interviews with NFL personnel in attendance. The Saints have historically sent GM and EVP Mickey Loomis, assistant GM Jeff Ireland, and a ton of scouts. This year, assistant special teams coach Phil Galliano will serve as the special teams coordinator for the national team. Galliano just finished up his 5th season here with the Saints as the assistant special teams coach. He is a veteran in the coaching ranks, 24 years of experience, 8 seasons in the NFL, and 12 at the collegiate level. This is the second year that the Senior Bowl is doing this type of approach with the coaching staffs. They're calling it a coach-up format where coordinators and assistant coaches are placed in elevated roles from the ones they currently have to get a little bit different type of experience. All 3 days of practice, Tuesday through Thursday, will be televised on the NFL Network and ESPN, and the game itself at Hancock-Whitney Stadium on the campus of University of South Alabama airs live on the NFL Network at noon on Saturday, February 3rd. To break down what we can expect from the week and highlight some of the prospects, let's bring in Fox 8 sports reporter Sean Fazende. Sean, thank you so much for joining us on the New Orleans Saints podcast. We have the Reese Senior Bowl coming up. I know that's an event that you keep track of throughout the season as far as prospects go, and it's coming up this next week in Mobile, Alabama, University of South Alabama. It's always a fun event. I enjoyed going there last year. What are you looking forward to?
I love the event. It's like kind of the unofficial kickoff to the off season, unofficial kickoff to just kind of the draft process, free agency process. And it's cool because, you know, you have coaches, you have college athletes, you have college coaches, you have agents, you have GMs, all in this relatively small city in Mobile, and we're all kind of on this college campus, you know, and everybody's doing their thing. That's why there's so much news that comes out of Super Bowl week, and it's always good to look at the next year's class of prospects. There's always something going on Saints-wise, via on the field, and also, I remember last year is when the Sean Payton news broke. So there's always some kind of big storyline that happens this week, and that's not by accident. You have so many people around one spot for so long of a period of time, face to face. Things happen, and it's always been my favorite part of Senior Bowl week.
Yeah, they say that over 900 NFL personnel are there from all 32 teams. From the coaching staff that's there, a lot of the younger assistant coaches get opportunities in different roles, to the scouts, the front office. As you mentioned, we'll probably get a chance to talk to some of the Saints personnel there. But one of their coaches that's getting an opportunity is a special teams assistant, and Phil Galliano. From your experience and talking to some of these coaches, what kind of benefits are there for them in getting an opportunity to take on a little increased role?
I think it's great. You get to be in a situation where you're around. You're in a situation where you're around other coaches. You're learning their kind of tricks of the trade. They're what they like to do in certain situations. You learn from them. You spread your knowledge. But probably more than anything else, you're up close and personal with these guys, these players. You get that you get that firsthand knowledge. And let's look last year. Ronald Curry was there, DJ Williams was there, Jake Haener was their quarterback. Look who they drafted. So I don't think it's any accident or any coincidence that, generally speaking, when I guess it used to be an entire team would coach one,
right.
Saints, whatever, would coach one team, but now they kind of mix it up. Which is probably a good thing for these young assistant coaches to get their names out there and just have an opportunity to maybe take on an enhanced role. But probably more than anything else, the value it brings to the organization is you get the up close and personal sort of look at these prospects coming up, what they do well, how they handle adversity, how they are in meetings. Like I said last year, perfect example. The Saints had an up close look at Haener, and he is a New Orleans Saint right now. So I think that's probably the biggest benefit organizationally.
Yeah, it's definitely a good opportunity not only to show what you can do on the field, but have some of those conversations where you can get to know somebody a little bit better. Looking at some of the prospects that are coming in, obviously there is always going to be a couple from LSU, and then quarterback Michael Pratt from Tulane has been a big name. Who are you kind of watching this upcoming week?
Well, those are the big names locally. There's Charles Turner, Jordan Jefferson from LSU, so that always catches my attention. I look at the helmets. I'm an
Mhm.
LSU guy. That purple and gold, I gravitate to it. Michael Pratt's certainly interesting. This is an interesting quarterback class. He's, in my opinion, the best quarterback in Tulane history, just in terms of what he's able to do over the course of his career uptown, and he's got a chance to make a name for himself in a crowded quarterback class. But if he has a great Senior Bowl week, all of a sudden those scouts that may have a third or fourth round grade on him go back to the tape, and maybe they, start to reevaluate some things. But outside of that, it's a big quarterback group. You got Penix, you've got Bo Nix that's going to be there. And I know people saw that Daniel Jeremiah mock draft that had a quarterback going to the Saints at 14 in Bo Nix. So you'll have those the premier guys. Both those guys have played a lot of college football. And then for me, I'm really going to be looking up front, the offensive line, especially at the tackle position, because honestly, I feel like that's where the Saints' biggest need is going to be. They got a pretty good group that's going to be there as well. So there's a lot to watch in the practices that are available for us to see up in Mobile. So it should be a fun week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting with Bo Nix. He went to Oregon. He's coming back to Alabama,
Yes.
where he's from. He started out at Auburn, so that'll be a fun storyline. There are a lot of good quarterbacks coming out in this class. Who is your favorite?
I mean, I told you I was an LSU guy, right? So
Yeah.
I think you know where I'm going with that one. But look, Caleb Williams has certainly done a lot of great things. Drake May is a guy I've been a fan of, and from what I understand, the Saints are a fan of him as well. Neither one of those two guys or Jaden Daniels won't be there either. So none of those guys, in my knowledge, are going to be in Mobile. But other players that I'm watching this week, I really want to see how Pratt does up against his peers on this level playing field, a full week side by side with these guys. I think he's got a real opportunity to turn some heads and to really catapult himself in the draft. Because look, grades are grades, but we know we're grading quarterbacks. There is a little special, hey, that's a quarterback. And there's always that, I don't know if you want to call it bonus points, whatever the case may be, because of the premier status of that position. So I think he's got a great opportunity as well. So yeah, it's a really good class of quarterbacks. In fact, some of the guys that decided to not go pro to stay back in college this year probably made a good decision because of how many really good quarterbacks there are in this year's class.
Yeah. It's interesting because last year you mentioned Pratt being able to come in and make a name for himself, but Tajay Spears was able to really do that as well by being at the Senior Bowl, getting to talk to some of these people in person. And he had a phenomenal rookie season with the Lions. So he's been fun to watch. Tulane has another receiver, obviously Tajay being a running back, but Jaquan Jackson that's going to be there this week. What have you seen from him over this past year?
Love him. He's a lightning in a bottle. I remember him in high school. We did his highlights here, Fox 8 Football Friday, Hahnville High School. So he's a guy, local connection, got a ton of speed, knows how to play. He's a guy that's got big playability. And we tend to watch the ball in these types of situations because it's just what we do. Mm-hmm. And when you're a receiver and watching the ball, you have a chance to make some big plays. You mentioned Tajay last year. He was so awesome in practices that we were able to see. If Jaquan Jackson can come in, flash that speed, big playability, ability to stretch the field vertical, there's always room on an NFL roster for a player that can do that. So I think he can help himself this week in Mobile.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up about Spears because he did stand out there among everybody at Senior Bowl. So that was really cool to see. I know there was, some skepticism about his injury status or health status, but he seems like he's done extremely well. They're doing the 75th anniversary of the Senior Bowl, and they're having a team that's going to be recognized. A couple of the former Saints players are on that team in tight end Jimmy Graham, tackle Teron Armstead, and then return specialist Darren Sproles. Funny to think about them being back there at that environment. Somebody, especially like Graham, who really only played basketball and then comes to the Senior Bowl. Do you remember any of those guys coming out of college and what their process was like?
Yeah, I remember Teron Armstead vividly because of his combine. I don't necessarily remember his Senior Bowl week. I remember him being there, but I don't remember. I remember his 40 time at the combine. It was it for everybody. I mean, it was unbelievable. But think about that. Jimmy Graham, basketball player until his last year at Miami. Teron Armstead, small school. Darren Sproul, small player. They all lit up the Senior Bowl, and look what happened to them. They all it catapulted them and got them on the map, so to speak, with a lot of teams. And those teams, obviously the Saints drafted Armstead, and Graham didn't draft Sproles, but nonetheless, I think you see what I'm saying here. It's a chance for some of these guys to really, kind of introduce themselves to the NFL, not just the scouts, because scouts already know who they are, but the coaching staffs and just the personnel people that are there. So yeah, I think it's a great week. And those three players in particular had such a big impact. And make no mistake about it, their week in Mobile really helped them help themselves by getting into the NFL, getting drafted. And as I say, the rest is history.
Yeah. I was looking through their Hall of Fame class as well. Like Morton Anderson was a part of the Senior Bowl, Pat Swilling, and then even Cam Jordan more recently. So it's been going on for a while. The Saints have seemed to have valued this opportunity to go out there and scout. I mean, what does it say about just their approach in coming to events like this and the value for them in seeing these players?
I think it goes to show you that they take it all seriously, and they've had some success. I remember vividly, I think that was the second one I covered. Yeah, it had to be the second one I covered. I interviewed Cam Jordan just on a whim because I saw him linked to the Saints in a mock draft. And this is before mock draft was crazy, but I just happened to interview him and said, hey, what happens if you were to end up with the Saints? And he was, typical Cam, great personality, that sort of thing. But it goes to show you that they value the one-on-one time. They trust what they see. And this is not the combine where you're in kind of a sterile environment. You're kind of in a, you're in shorts, you're doing stuff, but this is a practice. I mean, you're 11 on 11 hitting, you're in meeting rooms, you're in, you're interacting with teammates and coaches, and you're in a spot. You've spent the last 3 or 4 years in a spot at a college and you're familiar with those surroundings. Now you have to adapt to these surroundings on the fly. I think it goes to show that, you can kind of see who adapts well, and adaptability is key, obviously, to coming from college to the NFL.
It is a fun environment because there is more than just them going through there's the testing that they have to do at the combine. Right. And in the combine, everyone's kind of displaced outside of off the field. But here, people are just milling around a little bit. Like, you can kind of walk around, you can talk to some of the coaches or scouts or people that you see around. There's not too many fans, but there's some, but it is just really centralized on, what's going on the field. When you're down there and you're talking to some of the people or watching practice, what are some of the things you're looking for? Because I always like watching like the DB and wide receiver drills and seeing that competition.
Yeah, I love watching that. I see who's got, when it comes to quarterbacks, if anyone's standing out from an arm strength standpoint. It's funny, for 3 or 4 years I went there, I had never seen more quarterback center fumble exchanges in my life, because all these guys are so used to playing in shotgun. It was like, wow, that's another one. So even if something as simple as a QB center QB exchange under center is something that I watch for as well. And then because I will catch myself watching the ball too much, then I really, about halfway through practice, hone in specifically on the trenches, the line of scrimmage, who's winning those battles. Try to watch the one-on-ones and the drills as well, because honestly, I think that's where a lot of that, especially with the Saints' history of drafting linemen, this is where it starts for them. So I think it's a very important part of the process. So I try to watch everything, and then who stands out just from an energy standpoint as well, because I think that's important as well.
Mm-hmm. This year it's different because they're actually inviting, draft eligible underclassmen to the Senior Bowl. So they have 15 or so that have signed up to participate that aren't just seniors. So it's kind of misleading that it's called the Senior Bowl, but they're allowing some underclassmen. What do you think the benefit of that is, or why are they kind of opening that up?
Yeah, I don't know if this has anything to do with they're still kind of in that COVID super senior kind of thing. So some people still have eligibility, some not. I don't know that I saw a lot of straight 3 years and out guys. I don't know if it's a little more of 4-year guys that still technically have eligibility left. I'd have to go back and check the roster. But look, the more talent you get in front of you, the better if you're a scout, right? Organization, right? And seeing these guys going up against some of the top tier prospects in college football a season ago in a very competitive environment. Again, it's more data, it's more information. It's another sort of thing you can put in the profile of a prospect. If that player, it wouldn't normally be at Senior Bowl, but is that Senior Bowl, well, you can, do your grades that way. That's a part of the process as well. So I do think there is some benefit to letting some of these fourth-year guys that may not necessarily be seniors, but guys that still have eligibility, but guys are going into the draft. I think it helps them get in front of scouts and coaches, and it helps obviously the scouts and coaches to see what these players can do.
How much attention do you think is going to be on Brendan Rice just because he's Jerry Rice's son from USC?
I mean, look, when you have the name like that, of course, I think he will get the attention. I think he's a guy that comes from a strong lineage, and that certainly matters in the NFL. So yeah, I think he'll get some attention, and then I'm quite sure his dad's name will be brought up quite a bit. I wonder if his dad's going to be there. I mean, you never know. He might be practice to watch him.
I don't know, because they're recognizing the 75th anniversary team. So I don't know if Armstead or Graham or any of those guys are going to be milling around too. I know they said Phillip Rivers is coming in to speak at an event, kind of honoring that in tandem with some things going on for the weekend. So there's been some really high profile names that have been associated with this event over the years. They do a really good job with it. It's a lot of fun. And my only complaint from last season was that I never could find any Reese's anywhere.
Yeah, it's very true. I've gone there so much now. I got a few restaurants that I go to, kind of my spots when we're down in Mobile, and it's gotten better over the years. Because honestly, my early years of covering this, it was kind of a free for all after a practice. You just have to kind of, okay, let me grab this guy, let me grab that guy, let me hit it. Like now it's a little more, all right, these guys are coming over here, you can get them here. These guys are coming over there. We know when they're going to practice. We know when they're going to talk before and after. So each year it's gone. It's been better. And now that I love that it's all in one spot, because it used to be two different locations in Mobile. Now it's all at the University of South Alabama, which that campus is great. That campus is clean. Is a really nice campus. So it's centrally located there. So all in all, they've really grown that event from just a kind of a small town, kind of, a bowl game type thing to like a premier sort of event and a very important part of the pre-draft process in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's why the NFL Network comes out and is covering it. I mean, it's going to be on TV, not only the game, but the practices. They're out there all day long broadcasting and doing stuff on some of the players that they're seeing. So it is a fun event, and I know you're going to be there next week. Where can we find some of your coverage? Yeah, we're going to start our reports on Tuesday on Fox 8 at 4, 5, 9, and 10. We'll have a podcast preview on our Fox 8 Overtime podcast Monday, and then Wednesday when we're there. We do our podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so we'll have something there Monday, and then obviously Wednesday as well. So be on the lookout for the reports from Mobile. Should be a fun week. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for the time. Looking forward to seeing you out there, and I'm sure you'll be bringing a bunch of great coverage of the event. We'll just enjoy the couple days there in Mobile together. It'd be fun. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time with Sean. As I mentioned, you can watch all of those practices and the game on NFL Network and ESPN. Check out some of the upcoming talent for next season. I know we are all desperate for some football, as it is nearing the very end of the season, the Super Bowl coming up, and we're going to be without it for a while, so make sure you can get it in when you can and tune in this upcoming week. We'll have everything covered for you on NewOrleansSaints.com. I will be down there with some of our staff to make sure you guys don't miss a thing. Thank you so much for joining us on the New Orleans Saints podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.